Good afternoon, everyone. This is Scott, and welcome to the weekly trade report video for the week of February 19th, 2017. The markets are closed on Monday, so we're going to have a nice long weekend. Some good weather down here in North Florida, so it's going to be a good break. But first up, let's go ahead and take a look at the Dow Jones Industrial ETF. So we had the big Trump run up here, back in here. Okay, so Trump got elected, had a nice uptrend, and then from about mid-December into mid-February, we had this sideways market where the market was really going nowhere but consolidating. And then just recently, with this breakout and several 5 big green up days in a row. So we had this range breakout, and the market was in an uptrend, and then so that was very good last week. And then see, Thursday and Friday, I think the VIX was spiking, had a little weakness in the market, but on Friday the market recovered and closed basically on the highs there, green. And so we had a record close there, and all the indexes. So it looked like it was just basically some profit taking and what they call a normal reaction, or normal pullback in an uptrend. So stocks or markets don't just go straight up. They go up, they pull back a little bit, and they make new highs, and that's really what you want to see. So at this point, nothing to be concerned about on the indexes. Still looks strong here. Looking at the SPY, S&P 500, kind of a similar story. You had the sideways range consolidation after the Trump run-up election, and then basically 5 big green days, and then on Friday, you can see it closed basically at the highs. And so lots of strength still in this market, lots of good setups. And so still looks like the longer term uptrend is in effect right now. Let's take a look at the small cap, IWM Russell 2000. Once again, similar story. Here's this range, sideways range here. You got some resistance right around 138. So this is what we were watching for. And then you can see it tested at 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of, and then 5 finally broke out through 138, and looks like it's ready to head higher. So the small caps, iShare, Russell 2000 ETF, IWM looks strong here. Looks like there's more upside. Financial ETF. So this is one that I traded last week, and I was tweeting about it, and it was on the watch list. So we had this, once again, this sideways range for a couple of months, and then had this spot here right around 23.75, whatever, somewhere in this area. And then finally, another thing I was talking about before was this 50-day moving average, this rising 50-day, where you got a positive slope, and it's rising, and stocks and uptrends as they kind of converge on that rising uptrend, it acts as a support. And you can see that in this ETF where it just bounced right off that. And so on this day here, it broke out. This was technically a breakout. It actually closed the highest point in this range, even though it was very subtle. And so I took a position on this day and then held this all the way, and I closed my position, I believe, somewhere at 23.35 or 36, something like that, after buying, or I'm sorry, 24.36, somewhere in this area up here in the 24.30 area, after I entered down here at around 23.75. So it did keep going, and then had a brief pullback, and it closed basically on its highs. So you're seeing the same thing with the financials as you're seeing with the sector, the IWM, the SPY, and all that kind of similar pattern. And so the financials still look strong here. I think they're going higher, and just kind of one of the holdings of this ETF here is Bank of America. And basically, it's the same pattern, right? You had the resistance there at 23.50 area, and then it broke out, and now it's just kind of people that caught this breakout, taking some profits, some new buyers coming in. And so I would expect this, the XLF, and then this Bank of America to probably make new highs next week after this brief reaction or pullback. Another one that looks pretty good here is this GNBK. Been watching this one for a while. Nice looking bank. It's got some resistance here at around, let's see here, 25. So you can see that where it had a kind of a false breakout there. Let me see if I can move this resistance line. Okay, so you can see right in here this 25 spot. You can see the 50-day moving average, and then basically you could use this trend line right here as your support or your stop out if you were to enter this. But so this is just a nice looking bank, hasn't broke out yet, but through 25, this one's probably going to go next week. Not, you know, it's kind of a lower volume one. I think it trades like 100,000 shares a day, but a lot of these banks are like that. But this one's good. Not a fast mover, but it's a good looking setup there. So just the banks, the financials look strong. IBB. So IBB is broken out and lots of strength in that sector currently. We have basically, if you look at this chart, you know, we had a resistance level right around this 280, and it clearly broke that. And then you had some more resistance right up in here. And so it looks like it's broken through both of these key resistance levels. And so you know, maybe the next resistance is 300, but the IBB, the biotech sector, is clearly in an uptrend right now, and there's some good looking setups out there. It's the fucking NDRM, OSIR, see CLVS, to name a few, and there's some smaller ones that are very volatile. I generally don't trade those too much because they can really whipsaw you and, you know, hit your account. But some of those are also looking pretty good. But the biotech sector does look like it's going higher. Let's see here. Next up, let's take a look at, this is the Real Estate Select Sector Spider Fund. So basically the real estate investment trust, so REITs, which I generally don't trade, but they are showing some nice patterns. And this one has a very nice spot here. You could trade this fund, or you could look for individual REITs to trade. So right around here, you can see it's tested it here, and then now it's tested at 3. So this is a 4th time. So I would be surprised if this thing actually breaks out and to make new highs after this. You know, this was in a long downtrend, and now it just looks like it's consolidating and ready to make new highs through basically 3150 area. That would be a spot to buy this XLRE ETF if you were interested in that, but it has a nice chart pattern. Not a big mover, but a nice pattern. All right, so now let's get into some individual trades. So last week was good. I finished green. I started off the week good with XLF, and I forget the other ones. I'll get into those. I'll walk through each of the trades that I made last week. But midweek, I took a couple hits. And so this was one that I still am watching because it looks like it's basically kind of trying to break out through this downtrend, descending channel pattern, something like this. And you can kind of see right in here where it put in this low here at around $1.80, and then it touched that low again, but it didn't make a new low. So that's, which, you know, kind of a double bottom pattern, which indicates maybe this downtrend is ending, and, you know, it reclaimed the 50-day. And so I'm still watching this one, but I entered up here thinking it was going to break this 230 area, and then it just kept pulling back. So I went ahead and cut it, took a small loss on it, but I'm still watching it for the breakout through, say, 230 area, this recent high, somewhere in here, 231, and we'll see here. That would be a higher low if it can bottom out right off this 50-day here and then make a new high. So another one in the sector that I'm watching is Mosaic, MOS. May not be ready just yet, and that one through 34 area has a pretty good pattern. So this was a loser that I had from last week, a small loss, and you know, sometimes you can be right but at the wrong time, and you just you enter the stock or position too early, and eventually you're right, but it takes a couple days or a week or something for the, you know, what you've seen on the chart pattern to play out. And that's where you just got to be disciplined and make sure you just cut them, step aside, and then if it sets up again, you know, be willing to put money on it again. Don't let the fear or let the fact that you lost money on the trade affect your ability to re-enter the trade if it sets up again. So this is one that I'm still watching. So DNN, here's another trade that I took a loss on last week. So, you know, I had this really good pattern here where I was watching through the 180 or 80 cent level, and, you know, I actually did have a profit on this position. I think I cut it off for break even, but right in through here, let's see, was it right in here? I think I bought some on this break, and I thought this thing was going to break and make new highs basically through this 84 spot. And so it looked really good, and it basically opened at 84. I thought it was going to go, and then it failed, right? So on this day, I forget exactly where I cut it, but I did cut it on this day because it failed to break. And so, um, this action right here is a clear indication that it wasn't going to go, and that's where you got to be disciplined. And this chart looked really good. It looked really good to me. I thought it was going to go, but that's where you just have to be disciplined and make sure that you get out of a position. And I like to say, 2 to 4% below my entry is a good area to stop out. You don't want to let losses get too far. I wouldn't let it go any more than 5% against you. That'd be probably a max. But the good thing is you can always re-enter a trade. So let's say this thing sets up again and bottoms down here, right, and then heads back up here to 84, right? Then it would be 1, 2. It'd be a third test, and if it breaks that time, then you can buy it through the 84 spot on the breakout of that, and that'll just be it'd set up again for another trade. But at this point, it was a broken trade, and it's best to just let it go. So we'll keep watching it, but there's another loser, DNN. All right, so LACDF, this was a nice setup here. We had talked about this on the weekly trade report video last week. So it's a lithium play, and so it had this nice pattern right here. It's an OTC stock, and like I said, some people don't like to trade OTCs, but I find they have some really, really good patterns and really reliable patterns and could be very profitable. So just keep an open mind if you're not really an OTC trader, because there are some good setups here. So this one I bought on this 80-cent breakout. Had a great ascending triangle pattern here at 80, and so I bought it through here, and then it closed up here at like 84. Okay, the next day, and basically if you're looking at this, I like to use the depth of the pattern as a profit target. So if you're looking at the depth of this pattern, kind of look at where this thing bottoms out on these pullbacks or this range, and then just kind of take an average here. So if I'm looking at this, right in this area here, this kind of pulled back on this day here, and so right in here. So this is about 70 cents to 80 cents, so 10 cents, right? So then you add that on to the breakout level. So add that to 80, you get a profit target of 90. And I know at least a couple of people, a couple of members actually held this thing and closed it out at 90 cents. So you had within 2 days, this thing actually was up here and almost closed at 90. Actually, it's above 90 right now, but within 2 days, you could have got a nice profit here, and that's enough. And you just take your profits, or you can let you sell at least half your position or partial position, and let the rest run if you want, or you can just sell out and move on to the next trade. But this is a nice trade. I profited from it. I didn't hold it all the way to 90, but this day kind of scared me out as it kind of pulled back. So I think I closed it out at right around 84 cents. But anyway, it was a nice setup there. And nice trade, LACDF. Okay, so let's see. I think we already talked about XLF, and but yeah, we're watching for this. If this one can break out through, see, 57 was the high point on this rally here. So I think that one, if it breaks through 25 or 24.57, that'd be a trigger to go long. And it looks as for the next leg up. So XLF looks good. ZFGN, here's another losing trade from last week. So once again, oftentimes you get a lot of paper cuts, but as long as you can just, it's frustrating sometimes until you catch a winner. And I know what you guys are going through if you're trading and you're new, or you're not consistently profitable yet. I've been there, and but now I'm pretty consistent, and you'll get there too if you stick with it long enough. But so this one had a nice spot here, and I believe it was this day here. So whatever day, maybe this was Monday. This thing tried to break out, right? Had this, you can see the big long wick there. So it tried to go, and it looked like the pattern was something like, once again, my ascending triangle, ascending wedge, whatever you want to call it. This type of pattern here, right? So kind of like that. It looked like it was kind of following this pattern. And on this day, it kind of rallied, and then it failed, right? So I actually had to cut this one. It was a small loss, right? I think I bought in maybe at 430 or something like that as it was going, and then it faded back, so I cut the position. It wasn't working, and then you can see now it just kind of rolled over. So nothing there now. Maybe this thing will set up again, but you know, this stuff happens. You know, these failed breakouts, but you know, eventually one will actually break out and stick and keep going, like the OWCP did on Friday, and you have a really big winner. And so you just have to keep the losses small. All right, next up is HCLP. So this is another one that just, it still looks good, but it just wasn't moving like I thought it was. And so I had tried this one a couple of times, basically through 21. It's got this resistance at 21 area. Not the cleanest chart, but here's what I'm seeing. Kind of, if you draw this kind of, you can see it's kind of supporting, following this trend line here. And resistance right around 21 area, even though it kind of poked through there on the wicks. And so 21, and then so I tried some on this day, let's see, Thursday, and it failed, and then I closed it out for basically, I think it was a small loss on this day. It wasn't very much. It was maybe a 10-cent loss. And then Friday, it looked like it was going to go again. It actually had pretty good volume on Friday, but it just wasn't going, and it closed at 21.30. So this is one where, you know, it just needs a couple of more days to absorb sellers, and eventually it's probably going to go. But I went ahead and cut it for basically break even, and I'll reassess it next week. And so, you know, I'll keep an eye on this one. If we can see a breakout through the high of the day, maybe 2150 area, if it can break through that, you know, maybe it'd be another entry. Or if you're already in it, it still looks like it's going to go. If you want to give it a few days, be patient with it, but it just wasn't moving, so I opted to cut it and look for better trades that were moving. But this one still looks good, so we'll keep it on the watch list. HCLP. All right, KRNT. So KRNT was one that I did a day trade. So looking at this chart here, this 18 level is a key spot. Okay, so this closed at this 18 spot here, and then it pulled back down here. So it's got this support area down around, you know, 1615 area, 1620. So here's support, and then it's got this resistance up here around 18. So on this day, it's a Tuesday. So Tuesday it closed up here, and then Wednesday I thought, okay, if this thing can break 18, maybe it can go. And it tried to. I didn't pull the trigger, but then it actually failed and pulled all the way back. And so intraday I thought, well, I'm going to try to dip buy this one and see if we can just get, because it had this huge move, and then it had pulled all the way back to, like, I don't know, 17. I forget where my dip buy was, but I dip bought it in the low 17 areas or somewhere down here, and then it rallied like 30 cents intraday. So it was a day trade, kind of like an oversold bounce trade that I closed out. So that was successful, but in general, I'm not the best at doing quick scalp day trades, but that one worked. So on this day, it was kind of like, okay, well, it failed, and I wasn't really watching it. And then on Friday, so I had the next day here, Thursday, kind of put in, you know, just a red day, and then Friday it rallied back up to 18. So this one, I think this could go because it's got this, you know, this is basically a little higher low. You know, if you look at the pullback to the 1625 here and here and here, and this one actually pulled back to like 16, you know, 60 or something. So kind of put in a higher low right here. And so this one through 18 for Monday looks really good. I really like this one. I think it could go this time. So we'll see. But that one's a top watch for Monday, KRNT. So GGB, once again, another losing trade. So this one looks like a cup and handle pattern, and I still think that this one's going to go higher, but I think I just entered it too early. So you have this, it's a steel name, and I do think that steel names are still looking strong at this point. So you had this kind of cup and handle pattern. Here's the cup, and then the sideways is the handle. And then it broke out of that cup and handle pattern right through here, And I thought this thing's ready to kind of make new highs, but it's got some resistance up here at the recent high at 430. So, I tried to enter this one on this day here on the breakout through 436, and it basically pulled back and closed below the 430, 431, which would have been a new 52-week high. So it made new 52-week highs intraday, and then it pulled back. And so I held the position thinking, okay, well, we'll give it another day because the pattern is still intact. And sure enough, next day it gapped up, and I thought, okay, now it's ready to go. It's gapped up above, gapped up to 440, and then it just started to fail, and it pulled all the way back. So on this day I cut it and took the loss. I think I cut it, unfortunately, I think at the low of the day down here somewhere. And then, Friday it had kind of pulled back lower and then closed, actually above the high day at 427. So the chart still looks good, just a choppy little sucker here. And so, I'll keep watching this GGB. Maybe, I'm not sure where I'll enter it at, but maybe I'll trade one of the other steel names because this one seems to be a little bit too choppy for me. So, but that's GGB. That was another small loss I took last week. So. All right, QUIK, another small loss, okay? So you've seen the theme here, guys. You take losses, you take a bunch of small losses, but you can still be profitable. So let's take a look at this chart. So this one had this big breakout on this day here and rallied all the way up to 175. So this was a nice ascending triangle, and then it pulled back to the support area at 156, 157, which is a key support. And then, so I guess this was Wednesday. This one was rallying, and it was right up here at 175. And I thought, okay, this thing's going to break 175 and make new highs. Well, it didn't do that. It basically faded all the way back, right? So I gave this one a day and said, okay, well, let's see what it can do on Thursday. Maybe it can rally back up and test that. And the next day, it opened at 176, and then it just faded. So I had to cut this one, thinking like 168 area, somewhere, I don't know, somewhere in there. But I took a small loss on it, and then it pulled all the way back to the support area. And so anyway, it didn't break out like I thought. But right now, if it can get through, I wouldn't touch this one unless it can break through 175, 176. And you can see here, as a support trade, it actually pulled all the way back here and bounced right off that support level, 155, 56 area, and rallied up to 167. So, but at this point, no trade on this quick, and we'll see if it can get back up to 176 area through there. Maybe you can buy the breakout, but at this point, no trade for me. MDR, another small loss, okay? This one, but I still like this pattern. So you got this resistance up here at around 825, and you got the rising 50-day, and it looked like it was going to break on this day through 825, and it didn't. So I cut it out for a small loss, and it pulled back now, and we'll see. Keep this one on the radar. It's an oil play, and the oil sector has been kind of weak, or the energy sector. But we'll keep an eye on this one. It still looks like it's setting up. So we'll watch it through that 825 area. MDR, another small loser for last week. All right, next up is TWMJF. So this is a Canadian marijuana company. And this one, I'm seeing a similar pattern here between several of these Canadian marijuana companies. So this was a recent high right around this $10 area, right? Even though the wicks here went higher, the opening and closing prices are right around $10. So this one, it faded off, right? Kind of rode the 50-day, and then on this day broke out, trended up to 10, and then had a basically resistance there. People sold off at the 10. And then started to rally back up, right? So this one It looks like this one wants to break through 10. So I actually have a position in this one. I think I entered at 970, so I'm a little bit red on it. But this one, I still think this one's going to break through 10. And the reason why is I'm seeing the same pattern. And the other names here, another one is let's see, it's ACBFF, I think. HQF. Yeah, this one here. So same pattern here. This one's got a resistance at right around 5, right? So it's rallied right back up to that resistance level at 5. So you had three green days, and this one didn't get a big red sell-off like TWMJF, but the pattern looks very similar. So it looks like maybe it's just kind of resting here, absorbing some sellers at 5 before it actually breaks and makes new highs. So this one I like too, APHQF. So this one looks like it's ready to break out to new highs. And then the other one was so ACBFF is another Canadian marijuana play here. This one is not back up at its recent highs, which is somewhere up here, say 250 area, but it's got this really clear resistance right around this 202, kind of 205 area. And so it tested it here, 1, 2, 3. I thought it was going to go back here, and it faded. And then now it's right back there around 2. So I would look for this one. If you can get some volume expansion through, say, 205 area in there, this one could have a really big spike too. So keep an eye on those 3 Canadian marijuana companies for next week. It looks like they're ready to make a move. So, all right. So here's a nice winner from Friday. So this one, had a pretty good size position in this one, and let's just take a look at what we've seen on this chart here. So I was looking at this chart, and it was been on the watch list for a few days, and it looked like right around this 75 area. So right around in here, let's see, 74 was the high of this wick, kind of 75. So it was kind of an average price, right around 75 I was watching. But I had this big run up, and then it kind of consolidated between, it kept pulling back to this low of around 55 cents, and then right around this 75 cents. Actually, maybe it was 72 or something like that. But I was watching this, and on this day here, it looked like it was going to break through 70, like 70 through 70 cents, kind of through this recent high. And I thought, well, this one looks like it may ready to make a move, because this has been consolidating for a while. And then on Friday, I was watching it, and it finally broke through 70. And I kept watching. I started seeing the volume come in, and as it got up here in the 72, 73 area, I pulled the trigger and bought a good sized position on this one, and I alerted the Twitter feed that this thing is ready to go. And sure enough, man, this thing closed all the way up at basically near the recent highs, which is around 95 cents here, the high of this wick here, right? So this is the highest closing price, but it's still intraday. It actually got up here to right around 95 cents. But I mean, see that big volume expansion there, almost 7 million or whatever. And that's really what you want to see, is when these things start to move, you want to see the volume expanding, and then that way you can get in on this. But so I've still got this position, and we'll see what happens on Monday. If it can gap up, maybe I'm going to sell at least half my position on Monday, regardless of what it does. But if this thing can clear 95, it's blue skies, and it may have another big run. And these marijuana plays can have just monstrous moves. And you can see, historically, this thing, when it has these breakouts, 3 days here, 5, 6 days here, just huge run-ups. And so we'll see. Even down in here, you got 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So we'll see what this one does. But a nice profit on it. I think I made like 25% on the position. I didn't catch the whole 36% because I didn't buy it. On the 70 breakout, I bought it through like 73 or 4, something like that. So, but regardless, nice trade, nice profit on it, as long as it holds up for Monday. While we're talking about the marijuana plays, let's take a look at CNBX, okay? So just take a look at this chart here. This one was on the watch list back here at around 1, on the breakout through 139. So I forget, let's see, so it was last week or whatever. I seen this pattern here, and I can't tell you why I didn't trade this chart. I don't know. I messed up. I wasn't watching it, and although I'm really kicking myself because this would have been an absolutely beautiful play. And this thing broke out, and just look at that, huge days from 138 to $4, right? So, I mean, just think about that. Even if you caught 1 or 2 days of this, if you held it for 1 or 2 days, think about the profit you'd have made. And I rarely, these OTCs, I'll rarely hold for more than 3 days because they can get extended and crash hard. But even if you catch a meat of this move, which is what we've done historically with CBIS and MSIG and EAPH and down the line there with those other ones, but this was a perfect setup. This was, if you look at the chart here, you had this recent high way back here, this 160 area, maybe 170, whatever, 180, right? So there was that high, but then you also had the smaller term pattern that was on my watch list right around this area here, right through that 138 spot. So when this one broke out and that volume coming in, a fantastic trade. Now this thing is parabolic, guys. So could this thing go higher? Yes, but should you be buying it up here? The answer is no. You got to buy them as they're breaking out in the early part, man, because if you sit there and buy when it's up here and this thing has a huge, massive sell-off day, which I think is very possible now that it's so extended. I mean, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green days. I mean, you got to start. You can't be buying when a stock's up that much and expect to be profitable. I mean, this is just through experience. And just for an example, look at ACOL, kind of a same pattern, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big green days. I mean, it had a huge run up, but then once it got extended, a huge red sell off, and then it just faded off, right? You do not want to get caught in that. So wait until these things set up, and but as they get extended or go parabolic, you can't enter them. I know you get FOMO and you think these things are going to go to the moon and all that type of stuff, but you got to control that risk. You got to control your emotions, and the people that are buying up here are euphoria buyers, people that they missed this breakout here, and if you miss it, you miss it, but there's always going to be another one, right? So you just got to wait, be patient, but don't get caught in one of those big dumps, because that can really do damage to your emotions and your account. So CNBX, if you traded it on the 138 breakout, or if you caught a piece of that, lock those suckers in, lock the money in, but don't be buying this thing up here. Okay, let's see what's up next. All right, so ACIW, this is one that I got on the watch list for Monday. And let's take a look here. So you can see here at this 20 spot, right? Let's actually go a little further back. 127, even going further, 1 year. So look at this 20, right? So right around here, you can see how important that level is. So we tested it back here once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this thing is key resistance there at 20, right? So it's a very important level. And shorter term, you can see where it's tested it here, and then it's kind of putting in this, basically pull back, put this higher low in here. So this one looks like it could be ready to go. And it's not a huge mover either, but right there at that 20 spot. If this thing can break 20, be a nice trade. ACIW. Maybe this is what we're kind of seeing here on this chart pattern here. So the range is getting tight, a very tight range, and it looks like it wants to go through 20 cents, or $20, sorry. So this is a nice looking setup for Monday. Okay, Zixi finally went. So I know that I've been talking about this one for a while, and kind of basically on the $5 break. And so it finally went, and you can see there the expanding volume. So that's exactly what you want to see. Breakout on expanding volume is as good as it gets. And the pattern was the ascending triangle. Some people call it volatility contraction, whatever. This pattern is it works. And so you can see pulled back, got tight here, and then so the idea is to buy it on the breakout through the 5 area. And so this one closed up at 511. And so it's still very early of a breakout, and I think this one could go higher. So I may be looking to enter this one on Monday. We'll see here. If I had to put a profit target on it, um, I'd look at maybe 470. So 470 was the low of this range here, and then so 5 to 470 is 30 cents. So maybe 530 as a first target, and then if you want to use this depth down here as the 440 to $5. So that would be what, 60 cents? So maybe five. So I think it potentially could go to 560, somewhere in there. 550 would be a good target on this one. But it's a very nice looking setup. Zixi looks like it's going higher. This is the first day of the breakout and of this pattern here. So I definitely think there's more upside in Zixi. Alright, what was the next one here? Okay, so Acor is a biotech stock that looks like it's flagging. So here was the basing pattern here, and then I don't even know what happened here, but it had a big breakout on big volume, and basically ran up here to around 26, had a brief pullback to here, rallied back up near the highs around, what is it, 25.50 area, somewhere in there, right? So it looks like it's just flagging, right? Flagging up here for its next move up. So this is just some profit takers, so forth. But once the profit takers get out, I think this one can go higher. And the sector, biotech sector, is strong right now. So this is a nice looking flag set up for next week. So AMED, this is a healthcare company here. Once again, you see the pattern. 48 was the recent high there, right there, right, pull back, tested it, and then it's right there at the 48 spot. And here's the pattern you're seeing. Here's the trend line, right? And then if you wanted to buy this one, use this low here, say 44 to 48. So what, $4, which may be a little bit too generous there. So maybe 50, 52. Somewhere in that area would be a good profit target on AMED if it actually broke through 48. OSIR, here's another biotech here. This was on our watch list last week or the week before, and I was watching it for this breakout through 6. So kind of bottomed out, ran up to 6, pulled back, and then on this, I thought it was actually going to break through 6, and then it didn't, right? So it failed, and then it pulled back, and then now it's back up near that 6 level. So this is one to watch if you can get a breakout through the 6, maybe through the high a day on Friday, right up in here. So on Friday's high, if it can break that and start seeing expanding volume, it's a pretty thin name too. I think it only trades 100K a year, or 100,000 shares a day. But I mean, the pattern's setting up nice. This is kind of a bull flag, and the sector is strong. So if this we could break through Friday's high, I think ultimately this thing's probably going to head back up here to the recent highs at 690. But yeah, you can see this dip here, and it put in a higher low here, and then so decent looking setup there, OSIR. Okay, so Cliff. So Cliff is a steel company, an iron ore mining company. Had a big earnings win here. This big breakout on absolutely huge volume. It hadn't had this much volume in years, I don't think. But it broke all key resistance levels, on this day. So it broke out through this 980 area here, basically $10 resistance, and then it broke out through this recent high, through there, and then through there. So that was a new, broke through key resistance on big volume, and it ran up to somewhere around 12, and now it's pulling back. So what you'll find is the first pullback after a big breakout is often a great buying opportunity. And so that's what you're seeing here. This thing broke out, and you had a brief pullback here to 1125. And this one, I'd be on watch for this one to actually perk back up and break out through the recent highs in the 12 range. Just kind of remember that. So anytime you get a big breakout, the first pullback is often a good dip buying opportunity, or you can just keep an eye on it and wait until it perks back up and breaks out to, as it's going to break out to new highs, and you can buy it then, as long as you control your risk and keep your losses small. But Cliff is definitely one to keep watching here. I don't think that one's done. X, okay, another steel name here is so here was the recent high right around 39. Right, there was a high back here, and then I'm trying to extend this. Okay, there we go. So this one actually had a move up too. So it kind of broke back above the 50-day, which is good, and then now it's just flagging here with some sideways consolidation at new highs. So how long does this thing need to consolidate? I don't know, but I would watch through this area here. So I'd be watching through this 40-42 area. If it can break that looks like that's going to go higher. I do think this one's just consolidating here, absorbing some of the profit takers from this move, and then eventually it'll continue higher. DSS, one from last week, watch list there. This spot here, 154. So this candle here topped out there. This one peeked through, topped out at 154, and it's got the pattern. So the 154 right there, and then you got this ascending line here as a support, right around like that, right? So if this one can break 154, I think it's going to go back up here to 164. Okay, that'd be the next level. If it clears that, then it's new highs. But it's a nice looking chart. It's not the most liquid trade in the world. I think it trades, 100,000 shares a day, which is kind of thin for a $1.50 stock. But I mean, the pattern looks good. It's got a nice chart. It's breaking out. Longer term, you can see this is a 2-year chart. Once it broke $1.20, that was multi-year resistance, or at least 1-year resistance, and then 3 years ago, you can see this thing was up here at $6. So, and see that volume there? That volume was massive. I mean, you haven't had that much volume in 3 years. So, I don't know what happened with this company or what happened on this day, but something good happened. And so, but the pattern looks good. Keep an eye on this DSS. It looks good. And so I think that's it, guys. The market looks good. You got lots of good trade-up setups for Monday. If you guys have any questions, or any chart analysis you want me to look at, any trades that you're considering that I don't have on my watch list or whatever, just shoot me an email, or you can tweet me or send me a direct message on the private Twitter, and I'll be sure and get back with you. So all right, guys, see you guys on Tuesday. Have a great rest of your President's Day weekend. Thanks.